Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of the Gazette's Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Stu Cowan of the Gazette, joined by former Canadiens defenseman and assistant coach and 1986 Stanley Cup champion Rick Green, and my Gazette colleague and What the Puck columnist, Brendan Kelly. Brendan, Jacob Fowler called back up from Laval for the second time this season. Is he going back to Laval, or are those days behind him?
He is not going back to Laval. I mean, that would be that would be insanity in my view. I mean, I think that, and unfortunately for Samuel Montembeault, he is simply not the guy for the Montreal Canadiens. And Fowler's looked really good. Has he looked perfect? Of course not. But he's a goalie just starting his career in the NHL. And I think that, you know, this was something I've written this often in my What the Puck column this year. I was, as of, you know, November, ready to say they should bring up Fowler and forget about Monty. And I think the team lost a lot of points by you know, just going back to Montembeault and back to Montembeault. And I get it that Martin St. Louis is the veteran. He's the number one guy. We got to make it work, but it was never going to work. And Fowler, from day one, I mean, I always remember that game where he was called up the first time in Pittsburgh. Guy comes out there, I think 21 years old, and I think he just turned 21. Cool as a cucumber, you know, and he played a great game, and he's been pretty strong since he came back. I mean, that game against the Ottawa Senators was phenomenal. I mean, Montreal, you know, they won that game, and they've got that problem with 6-on-5. St. Louis talks about it all the time when the other team pulls their goalie. Ottawa should have tied up that game and probably won in overtime because they'd have all the momentum, but at the very least get to OT. Fowler single-handedly gave them the regulation win there, and I think he's looked great. And I think this is a great thing for the team because they've got a competition. I already see Dobesh playing better because Fowler's there, because he really has to, and he is a competitor, Dobesh, and so it's good for him. It's good for both of them. Is this the time for Fowler? Maybe not, but it's not the time for him to be in Laval. And this whole thing of like, and you hear this from pundits and fans, oh, we can't bring up Fowler. He's too young. It's not good for his development. What's wrong with playing in the best hockey league in the world? You know, I mean, it's, and he's ready to do it. And he's not the first young goalie to come out there. Maybe he starts the playoffs depending on what happens in the next 2 weeks. And, you know, and again, people say, oh, you can't do that with a young goalie. Well, Rick Green knows a young goalie. He did that 19 years old, Patrick Waugh, right? I mean, it can be done. It's every goalie's different. And Jacob Fowler really looks like he's ready.
Well, I think the Canadiens have handled him well, because I think their concern was he going to be able to handle the spotlight here in Montreal? And after playing in university, not playing that many games each season, they called him up there earlier when Montembeault was struggling. He played 10 games, and Ken Hughes spoke about how he was even more impressed by how mentally he handled things than how he played physically. They sent him back down. I spoke with Fowler about this the other day, and he said, going back down, he says, the game's a little slower in Laval. It allowed me to work on some things I needed to work at. I'm more confident and ready to come back up. Rick, I don't see him going back to Laval, do you?
No. I mean, this guy from his arrival has shown that perfect air of confidence and almost cockiness to the point where he challenges opposition. Say, you want to beat me, you better be good, because I'm going to face you and going to make it really tough on you. And to see those type of ingredients in a young guy, he's cool. As Brendan says, he seems to be composed. He seems to be very confident at such an early stage to know what he needs to do to perform at his best. He makes those saves. He's aggressive. He's mobile. He's the real thing. And, you know, if anything, he's a young guy, which is fine. We've seen it before. He's going to gain more and more experience at the NHL level, and he's obviously able to handle that type of pressure in that position in Montreal, and he's doing a hell of a job. And the team knows very well that you have to have a guy like that, or two guys like that are going to get the job done, and they're doing the job.
He is very confident and a little bit cocky in a good way. I think you need that in Montreal. I think to play goalie, one of the most pressure-packed positions. Rick, when Patrick came in, as Brendan mentioned earlier, did you guys realize right away that he had that cockiness to him?
Not really. He was a really, really quiet kid that you had to be careful not to touch the pucks in front of his stall. It's risky losing your job if you dared move them. But he was a special guy. You could see it in his fire and his desire to win, his competitiveness, and his classic example of you better be really good to beat me because I'm not going to let it happen. And that just continued to develop as he got older. But he had all the tools and the real confidence, knowing down deep that he was going to make the difference in the game. And thank goodness we had a guy like that in '86.
Well, Brendan, I think one of the reasons Marty St. Louis stuck with Sam Montembeault so much this season is that this team doesn't need Carey Price goaltending or Patrick Waugh goaltending. They're ranked second or third in the NHL in scoring. They just need a 900 save percentage. And Montembeault, the last 3 years, the save percentage of 901, 902, 903. What happened this season? What do you think happened to him?
Well, you know what? That's right. They don't need Carey Price. They've got so much talent out there, but they weren't getting 900 goaltending. They weren't getting it even nearly from Montembeault. And yeah, whatever for the previous years, but he wasn't doing it this year. I mean, look, we don't know, right? I mean, it does happen to goalies. Like it's not Jose Theodore. It happened to him. Tim Thomas is like goalies come and go. They're great, and then they're not great. I mean, there's people like Patrick Waugh and Martin Brodeur who are always great. But he's not the first goalie to fall off the pedestal. I mean, my theory, and I think there's something to it. There's still like you're watching the games on RDS, and there's still all these ads with Montembeault, right? He got all these opportunities. You're the number one goalie. He was very good. He pulled them into the playoffs last year. He's a petit gars de chez nous, so he got all this sponsorship. He was the man. It was like everything was focused around him. And the pressure was too much. We're talking about how Fowler has the swagger. Dobes very much has the swagger. It looked in every sense that Montembeault lost the confidence, lost the swagger. I swear I would watch the games, and I'm sure I'm not the only person. I see the guy coming down the left wing, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just already seeing a goal. And that's Montembeault seeing the same thing. You could see it in his body language that he felt he was going to let it in. I mean, look at that. I forget which game it was. He let in the first shot and the goal got called off, and then he let in the second shot. Now, the second shot was a good shot, but it's like, I don't know if it's true, but I saw something on Facebook saying he's let in 25% of the games the first shot. He's let in a tremendous amount.
Five times he's let in the first shot. And that game you're talking about, he also let in the first shot of the third period, which was a backbreaker, and that was the last.
And that kills
the foul.
That kills the confidence of a team. I mean, I'm sure Rick can speak to that. If the goalie lets in the first shot, yeah, it happens, but it's not a great way to start the game. I mean, and you're beginning to think, and it really is a thing. I think that's what happened in 2014 when Carey Price got hurt. Tokarski was pretty good, but the team felt they couldn't win with Tokarski, and they didn't win that series. I feel that's what eventually happened this year is the teams look how they score more goals with Dobes because they think they can win. With Montembeault, they don't think they can win, and this is not a good position for a team.
I can see. To me, I think it's almost just an off season from he's got one more year left on his contract, $3.1 million, which isn't a lot in today's NHL for a goalie. I'm sure there a lot of teams in the NHL having goaltending problems. I'm sure during the off season, if the Canadiens are looking to move him, there'll be a buyer or somebody who's
Edmonton would pick up Monty in a second. I mean, he's better than Jerry.
What do you think happened to him this year, Rick?
Well, Brendan, you mentioned the word swagger, and swagger comes with having success in your position and making the difference in the game. And those two young guys have the swagger because they're getting results. And Montembeault, as much as we were hoping, didn't get it done. And nobody feels it worse than him, knowing very well that he's going to let something in. He's going to let a bad one in. And when that's in your mindset and you're very passive and, you lack that confidence and that swagger, knowing very well that you're going to stand out, you're going to challenge, you're going to make the difference in the game. When you lose that, you're backpedaling and you're just, you're waiting for the end results, which usually are not good.
Yeah, well, having the three goalies around, I was talking with Jacob Fowler about it the other day, and he was saying that the three goalies get along fantastically. He says these other two guys are like my best friends on the team, and along with Marco Marciano, the new goaltending coach, they're a tight group. So I don't think it'll be a distraction moving forward. But I agree, I'd be surprised if we see Sam Montembeault play again this season. Anyway, that's it for this Hockey Inside Out Show bonus episode. We'll have one more bonus episode coming up over the next few days, so you can look for that. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. And if you didn't already know, Hockey Inside Out is also available now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.